Want to have our discussion and look specifically, I guess, first at how evidence-based parenting helps families create this prosperous future. And I'm going to start with you, Sophie, if that's okay. Daryl mentioned there's lots of parenting advice out there. You just need to Google positive parenting, I guess. You talked about the importance of evidence. How do we know it's important? What's the proof that it's crucial in your view?
It's a good question, Madonna, because when I first started looking at this, we talked about using randomized controlled trials as like a gold standard of working out what works. Now, this is very important. You can see what happens between a control and intervention group, and you can control lots of factors. But in the real world, it's very hard to do randomized control trials, and especially with families where there are more risks. So evidence needs to be where you can establish under the best possible conditions, some comparison ideally between a trial of an intervention with something that is neutral or different in contrast, ideally. But even then, there might be evaluation that comes back just from feedback before and after for participants of a parenting resource on a Google parent website, for example. So there are many ways that we can look at how to collect evidence. The gold standard is one end, and it may range from right across the spectrum to more of a immediate feedback.
Okay, so then following on from that, Daryl, can I go to you? What specific kinds of skills do you think can be developed through evidence-based parenting support?
I think it's really about building the capabilities of parents as a whole. And, as I think Sophie was referencing before, the evidence really needs to relate to at what point in their journey of parenting are they coming to. Now, unfortunately, one of the easiest ways to access parenting, evidence-based parenting programs and parenting supports is actually through the child protection system, which in my view is way too little and way too late when things have really gone off the rails. And yet there are some really great parenting programs that have been shown to be effective in really high-risk families with parents who are juggling really complex kind of challenges in their lives, mental health issues, drug and alcohol issues, as well as having, often grown up themselves with really negative parenting environments.
I think that the parenting programs that have been shown to work, in other words, that have been subjected to critical evaluation, either through randomized trials or increasingly through multiple different mixed methods that have been used to evaluate the impact of programs. Essentially, they have a strong theoretical framework and foundation. A lot of them are based on a mixture of social learning theory, attachment theory around emotional learning, but also blended within a public health population-based framework. I think the other thing that's important to recognise is that these theoretical underpinnings are usually explicit enough to lead to particular kinds of parenting competencies or capabilities being articulated that support the development of capabilities in children. And they relate to a wide range of things, from kids learning language, social skills, relating to how they're doing academically, how they're doing with their peer group, and so on. So the main thing I'd just say in closing that point is that evidence-based programs need to be based also on an understanding of why they work, how they work, when and with whom, and under what circumstances they don't work. There are always non-responders, and we always need to be searching for better and better ways of delivering our parenting programs.
So I'm not saying you're very old or anything like that, but I know you're a granddad and a parent. How different are those roles in terms of the evidence you used and how you deal with a child?
Well, we've done quite a bit of research now looking at the provision of positive parenting programs through Triple P with grandparents. And basically, there's a 3-generational benefit. If the grandparent has a significant amount of time they're spending raising grandchildren, or if they're custodial grandparents, it benefits themselves and their offspring. If they are stepping into that grandparenting role and have a huge responsibility because the child's parent has a serious mental health problem or a substance abuse difficulty, they're crucial to the well-being of children. So the main point that I'd make there is that the intergenerational benefits of parenting programs should not be underestimated. But at the end of the day, it's all about promoting the well-being of the next generation. It so happens that it benefits the current generation as well.
Daryl, can I go to you here with another example we see in the popular media all the time? And it's not so much a big picture example, it's one you mentioned, and that's smacking or corporate punishment. You know, it's an interesting case study because it routinely, annually becomes a discussion point in the media. Where do you see evidence-based parenting specifically there able to change parenting behaviour?
Yeah, look, thanks, Madonna. And I suppose I'd pick up on one thing. I actually think it is a big picture issue only because of the widespread nature of the engagement of physical punishment of children. So it's not something that is just a small proportion of the population. You know, a recent survey said that up to half of parents, you know, see it as acceptable and do engage from time to time, if not routinely, in what we call corporal punishment, which is often a bit of a euphemism for what ends up being, in many instances, physical abuse, would meet the definition. So I think there's, first of all, we have to acknowledge that what is at the core of almost all parenting supports and structured parenting programs is actually the issue of improvement in discipline practices. So that's really the core. Most evidence-based parenting programs will really be targeted around that. Parents get frustrated at children not following their directions. And so really being able to provide different skills around how to manage challenging behaviour from children is really the core of all parenting supports.